expectations are soaring as we get into the National Racing Report here on MSG Plus. Glad you're with us from the Big A. We're done with racing on the inner track. Wood Week begins Wednesday, April 1st. We're on the main track going forward. We're glad you're with us for the next half hour. It's Jason Blewitt, Maggie Wolfendale alongside the boys, Richard Migliori and Andy Serling, out on the West Coast with their Dubai World Cup show on Fox Sports 1. But Maggie, that leaves us, you and me, and all of you, a Group 1 and Grade 1 extravaganza.
Well, Jay, as you like to say, we're holding it down here for the world in the capital of the world, New York City, and really every country, every racing jurisdiction in the world was represented at Dubai for the World Cup. And it's really cool. I mean, sometimes the international horses don't necessarily come to the Breeders' Cup, so I think the World Cup, especially now that they're back on dirt and we get the American flair, it's such a great kind of congregation of the world's best horses.
Indeed it is. Millions of dollars in purses, state-of-the-art made-on race course, and here we go with the Kentucky Derby Preakness winner, California Chrome, the stateside heavy favorite in Saturday's $10 million Dubai World Cup. Green cap on the outside, 4 wide beneath Victor Espinoza. The eventual winner, however, was off a bit slowly, really was pecked at to get in the game, and there he is on the outside moving in the black cap right off the flank of California Chrome.
And you want to check out Lee, the other American horse, right behind those leaders in the blue and gray Claiborne and Adele Dilschneider silks. But what an interesting trip here, Jay, for the eventual winner. That was Prince Bishop. He did not like the kickback. He had to break from the rail. William Buick sensed that. He was hard ridden. He was at least 15 to 20 lengths out of it as they went around that first turn. He rushed up about 5 wide. And here we see him drawing away from the rest of the field to win easily. This 8-year-old son of Dubawi and his grandfather, well, he was probably the most impressive winner of the Dubai World Cup, Dubai Millennium.
Right, he's got the Dubai World Cup winning in the pedigree, if you will, and you see this 8-year-old gelding, as you mentioned, becoming in the process of winning Saturday's 20th Dubai World Cup, the oldest World Cup winner of all time. And there is Sheikh Mohammed getting a congratulatory kiss and a hug, and he'll dance around. They love him there in Dubai. He's got over 3 million followers on Twitter, and for good reason. He's a great ambassador of the game. He has spent millions, I mean literally hundreds of millions of dollars. Of course, he bred Dubai Millennium, and he's got a good one here who, you want to talk about longevity, and if you don't succeed once, try again. This is the 4th Dubai World Cup appearance for Prince Bishop and his 5th appearance on the Dubai World Cup racing night, having competed in the Shima 2 years ago.
And now he goes 11 for 28 lifetime. He was just measly over $1 million. Now he goes to over $6 million with this win in the $10 million Dubai World Cup. So really cool. I love the geldings. And as far as the American horses go, I mean, people making excuses. Maybe Victor Espinoza had California Chrome too wide. You know, well, that's where the horse likes to run, and that's where he broke. Exactly. Lee having a little bit of trouble in going around the final turn there, kind of had to steady in behind horses and never really got clear. But when he did get clear, finally, he didn't have much to answer for Prince Bishop. So respectable but maybe disappointing efforts from the American horses, but take nothing away from the winner.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th, quite simply, behind the 8-year-old in the Superfecta at Saturday's $10 million Dubai World Cup. As we get home to the United States, we head down to Miami and we look at the gem of the prestigious Gulfstream Park Winter Meet. It is Saturday's $1 million Bezalel Stables Florida Derby. What many viewed as a 2-horse affair, well, it turned out just that way. Materiality, green silks on the front end, and at this point, into the far turn, he is bracing for the New York-bred upstart right to his outside.
Only his 3rd career lifetime start here, and a great ride by Johnny V. You know, it was interesting. He actually opened up as the favorite before drifting up to be 2nd choice behind Upstart, the New York bred here. And we'll see Jose Ortiz going to work here right-handed on this horse. I thought here, you should have gone lefty. As you see Materiality drifting out a little bit, maybe he was just the better horse, but they both want to kind of lay on each other. Why not get away from this horse and really have Upstart running in the clear. Because, yes, he faced some adversity. He was eventual takedown, second place finisher last time. But it was like once he got clear of those horses and away from them, that's when he really started running. And we saw materiality kind of all over him. And he just didn't put in his best effort, I thought.
Now, in regards to materiality, brief but impressive, I think, is a good way to describe his career. He's only got the 3 lifetime starts. He's won all 3 of them down at Gulfstream Park. He did not race as a 2-year-old, so he's got that stat, and that is a long stat with a lot of successful history behind it going against him into the Kentucky Derby for trainer Todd Pletcher. So colt by a Fleet Alex didn't debut till January 11th down at Gulfstream, and what do you think of him going forward?
And you gotta factor in the fact that Todd Pletcher just has
ungodly numbers at
Gulfstream Park, and his horses run out of their skin. And as you were saying, this horse lacks seasoning, and I think that is so important for horses moving forward to the Kentucky Derby. And he just kind of gets a one-way ticket into the Derby with this 100-point Derby points win.
Needed the win, for sure.
And, I mean, does he really belong there? A lot of people are going to say no. Is he very talented? Yes.
He's light on seasoning. We'll see what he does going forward at Churchill Downs. And son of a Fleet Alex, once again, who ran well in his Kentucky Derby defeat. Let's move on. By the way, 3 career wins in the Florida Derby for Todd Pletcher. That's what I couldn't think of. Let's move on to the Louisiana Derby as the winter meet at Fairgrounds wrapped up on Saturday. They had an extended blockbuster card. In fact, they're just coming up on race 13 as we tape the show. But let's get to the race we all want to see. An international star in the Todd Pletcher-trained Stanford hook up off the quarter pole. How nimble. He just tipped out into the 2-path after running inside throughout the early portion of the Louisiana Derby. This horse is just very game, shows up, and just wants to find the finish line first. International star.
Jay, he's quickly and rapidly becoming my favorite 3-year-old, and he can run at any distance and win. He can run on any surface and win. And boy, he's like the Fairground surface as he sweeps all 3 of the Fairground 3-year-old Derby preps. And I mean, I didn't love how much Miguel Minna cracked this horse with the whip. I'd like to see a rider more hitting in rhythm, and he just kind of is chopsticking him. I don't love that, but it just proves that International Star is just the epitome of a racehorse with that big heart.
And we can't have a Kentucky Derby without Ken Ramsey present. I noticed on Jay Pribbin's Twitter moments after the Louisiana Derby, it was Ken Ramsey bellowing, "We're going back to the Kentucky Derby with International Star." And lo and behold, they've got a New York bred. There aren't a ton of state breds by Fusaichi Pegasus, and there aren't a ton of Fu Pegs that can run, at least at this stage of the game, at an elite level. But they found a diamond in the rough with International Star, who, no matter how you feel about the 3-year-olds that he's faced all winter long at Fairgrounds, you've just got to respect a horse who shows up with his lunch pail, as the Mig would say, and gets it done.
And he is that kind of lunch pail horse. As you were saying, he's still a bit on the smaller side, but thus he is nimble. You can put him in spaces, and that's what you need in the Derby. And Jay, they picked this colt up for only $85,000 back as a yearling, and you're running against $400,000 materiality. So, like I said, he's the kind of blue-collar horse that I'm quickly becoming a fan of.
A win in the Florida Derby, a second in the Louisiana Derby, and Todd Pletcher will set his sights on this coming Saturday's $1 million TwinSpires.com Wood Memorial. Not 1 but 2 horses for the Pletcher Barn. We'll have that $400 buy-in handicapping contest, and we are talking about Daredevil and the Withers winner far from over. They will ship up from Florida. In fact, Daredevil's already here. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wood Day, and we'll see you for our second segment when we take a trip back to Maidon. It's the Racing Report from the Big A. Main track, spring in the air. We hope that's the case. Snow flurries on Saturday, closing day of the inner track. And we're heading back out to the deserts of Dubai, Maidon Racecourse with the Dubai Shima Classic. No snow flurries out in Dubai under the lights this past Saturday as we have this international field on the turf in the $6 million Dubai Shima race that had a lot of stateside interest simply because the American, or now American, main sequence was trying to take his game, an unbeaten 6-for-6 from Grand Motion, over to Dubai to try to become the first U.S. horse to ever win a Group 1 on the turf over there.
And Jay, tonight really wasn't main sequence's night. He hopped up at the start. He just was never comfortable, and that was a quote from trainer Grand Motion. He looked prior to going into today that he was training beautifully over there. And he just wasn't comfortable. He was kind of getting to the lead a bit earlier than they wanted to, as we see him on the outside under Rajiv Mirage. and he just came up empty. But take nothing away from the winner, Dolnaya, a 4-year-old filly. And you know what I was thinking today? The French really know how to condition these fillies. I mean, you think of Frev, you think of Goldakova. They took down the boys every time, and a great job by her trainer, Freddie Head, and her jockey, I should say, Christophe Soumillon, who picked up 2 wins.
And Elaine Dupre is, in fact, the winning trainer. And you watch Christophe Soumillon. I mean, watch this ride. Sitting in the pocket, green cap, shadow roll, angles out into the 2-path. Main sequence, who, after not breaking all that alertly, surprisingly moved up down the backstretch, pulled a trip that he has rarely pulled in the U.S., uncovered and up close to the pace, just did not fire. Flintshire, who's a globe-trotting, I mean, just world-traveled Group 1 competitor for Juddmonte Stables, puts in a good run on the outside, but no defeating this French bred who's owned and bred by His Highness, the Aga Khan. And we'll see what they do. You've got Trev in France, and there's just a number of top-class French fillies that run on the turf and can dance in the Group 1 dances all over the world.
Yeah, they can. Look at their just a very confident ride and handling of Dolnaya, and Flintshire. He's really cool. And actually, this was the same finish of these 2 past performances in the Prix d'Archan back in France.
How about that? Both of them showing up in ungraded stakes at Chantilly, an allowance race with a purse of $56,000, and you've got the 1-2 finishers eventually of the $6 million Shima. We hope Main Sequence is okay. We hope to get him back to the U.S. with Grand Motion, and maybe we see him over the summer at Belmont Park in a race like the Man of War and/or Manhattan. Golden Shaheen, well, the Americans came away empty-handed in the Shima in the Dubai World Cup. Not the story in the 6-furlong, $2 million Shaheen, now on a dirt track, not the synthetic, and Bob Baffert getting his first ever win in this race over in Dubai. Secret Circle, who's just a tough old campaigner, tracking the pace 3 wide, and he's got a heart as big as Maidon.
I mean, look at Victor Espinosa's hold on Secret Circle. He is so full of horse right here, and just has him out in the clear. And once he pushed a button, Secret Circle ran down his foes. It was nice to see him snap that 6-race losing streak here in the Golden Shaheen. And a disappointing effort, though, by our other American contingent in Saludos Amigos. Just didn't fire. It's not the Big A.
It's not the Big A, but he's won stakes at Belmont. Yeah. Was a pretty good 3-year-old when he was out on the West Coast. Just not the same Saludos Amigos we saw all winter long on the inner track, as we see Victor Espinosa, who was aboard California Chrome a few hours after taking the Golden Shaheen with Secret Circle. Just a neat old horse, and I mentioned in a way this 6-year-old by Eddington in the same breath as like International Star, being by Fupeg. The Makers and Ramsey get that horse. There aren't too many Eddingtons that run at a Group 1 or Grade 1 elite level, and Bob Baffert winds up with the only Eddington who's been an absolute monster.
Exactly. It's amazing how pedigrees, sometimes they don't pan out, sometimes they don't give you clues into what the horse wants to do. I mean, you see a lot of these horses bred out and out for the turf, and hey, they are dirt champions. So it just goes to show you that you can't always go by the pedigree, and once they're in the right hands, they can really get good.
He shipped for the Cigar, maybe the Metropolitan, re-emerging later in the season in stateside for Secret Circle as we head to the turf, and it's the very rich, another $6 million stake. Purses out there are outrageous, and this race run at 1 mile and a furlong on the Maidon turf. It was a field of 10, and as far as the British-bred Solo, a gelding, a 5-year-old, he was trying Group 1 company for the first time in his career, and he certainly backed up the confidence of his trainer, the great Freddie Head.
Yes, this one trained by Freddie Head here. And Wertheimer and Frere, they are great owners. They are great for the game. This horse has won over his career starts. He's 8 for 13 lifetime, and he's a gray gelding. You can't disregard a gray gelding.
No,
we see
and this gray gelding finishes up like he's got a burning hot ember on his tail, because he just turns the afterburners on. And again, this was an international field, maybe not as tough as the Shima, in a shorter race. You had a world-traveling Group 1 competitor like the Gray Gatsby in the mix, who will finish off a Gray Roan Exacta. But what can you say? Solo had not run in a Group 1. You watch this performance running away from these horses. I expected, looking looking at, you can see the jockey, that is Maxime Guillon, blowing kisses, so pumped up, and rightfully so, getting 60% of $6 million to the winners. But this horse struck me with that effort like the kind of horse who's got nothing but Group 1s and Group 1 wins on his resume.
He doesn't. It's okay. It doesn't matter. He knows how to win, and that he doesn't know he hasn't run against Group 1 horses before. He just knows how to win, and that kick like that in this kind of race is really, really impressive.
And the American Mashawish for Todd Pletcher. Not a bad day for Todd, checking in third in that $6 million Dubai Turf. He'd go on to win a bunch of races down at Gulfstream Park, including the Florida Derby. Well, Todd Pletcher is likely to be running against the winner of the UAE Derby, and that is a very impressive Irish bred who's 4 for 5 on the dirt, yellow sleeves, blue cap, sitting the pocket. Mubtahij, excuse me. It's been a long day. This horse, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I do know he is very good, and he will add a lot of flavor to the pre-Kentucky Derby hype in the U.S.
Really, really, Jay. This was impressive. I mean, he got a good trip. There's no disregarding that. The other win for Christophe Soumillon. And Mike DeCock, he is super in this race. This is the 6th time he's won it. But another son of Dubawi here, taking very nicely to the dirt, and he had in his last 4 efforts, and they all came at Maidan. Just 1 loss out of the 4, by ahead by the horse who finishes second to him here, and he's still green, Jay.
Right. Does that worry you potentially going forward at Churchill Downs and the circus that has been known to be with the 100,000 plus?
Here, but...
And even no, that's a very good point. But maybe Churchill Downs a little more confined. I've got to think backstretch mornings, Derby week at Churchill. There's a lot of more attention, ton of people, photographers, etc., etc. We'll see what Michael DeCock can do with this horse going forward. But does that greenness potentially bother you shipping to Churchill?
And that's what Mike kind of alluded to, although they already have a flight booked for him for mid-April to make his stateside trip. And Mike DeCock is saying, well, we do things a bit differently down there in South Africa and when he trains over in Dubai, training on turf and what have you. So he's going to kind of have to change things around, and maybe that does affect him. But still, no doubt, he has talent.
Razi Johannesburg, he adds flavor. There's no doubt about that with that Irish bred coming to the States. And speaking of the good old U.S., we're back down to Florida, and we've got some races from Fairgrounds as well. It's the Racing Report, 34 days out from the first Friday in May with the Kentucky Oaks 3-year-old fillies, although the boys took the spotlight at Gulfstream and Fairgrounds. What about the girls? We'll have the Gulfstream Park Oaks followed by the Fairgrounds Oaks. And for Dale Romans, he's got a nice little filly here by Summerbird named Bird at the Wire, who found a home at Gulfstream Park, won the forward gal, beaten a neck last time out in the Devona Dale. It's back to the winner's circle beneath Irod Ortiz Jr., who forewent a Saturday at the Big A and won 3 races down at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, he did, including the Pan American with Imagining for Shug McGahee. But taking a look at Bird at the Wire, she's been good, and she really gets along with Irad as he picks up his second win aboard her. She looks good. I think this was the weaker of the 2 filly races that we saw here today. But I'm not saying there isn't potential here, and she's going to wind up in Kentucky in the first Friday in May.
And the Kentucky Oaks. And she strikes you as the kind of horse because her route races were pretty solid last season at 2. When she stepped up her game since running in some long races at a mile and a 16th at Keeneland, it took her a few races to break her maiden. She's got seasoning, she's got foundation, and she can run all day. It shows as she picks these horses up 3 wide. Eskin for money in the yellow cap. Javier Castellano had a big afternoon as well. Went to work on her. She's come a long way, and it took her forever. It took her a half a dozen tries to break her maiden, but she's been pretty good in her last few down at Gulfstream Park for Todd Pletcher.
Right, and you don't really see these Todd horses necessarily running this much so far in their careers. I mean, this was her 9th start, and she, like you said, has been very good now, kind of in the later stages of her 2/ now into her 3-year-old year. So, Eskandrea, maybe a hot new sire coming up.
All right, let's move on to the Fairgrounds Oaks. Most eyes on Amma Chatterbox. She is odds-on 3 to 5 black cap, about to set her sights on the lead, and she has just rolled through, much like International Star. She just hasn't had many serious competitors over the winter at Fairgrounds. 3 consecutive stake scores.
and this was impressive to me, Jay. I thought this was a really respectable time, and for the fact that she helped set those early fractions that were quick, 23:46, and she looks as though she might get a little leg weary here, and then she just kind of keeps rattling on here for trainer Larry Jones and Florent Giroux. But Steve Asmussen's filly ran a game second, I thought, and could be a filly on the improve. She definitely has a size looking at this replay, and I would think that the further they go, the better she's going to get.
And she definitely has a trainer who knows what it takes to trade a top 3-year-old filly when you're looking at Untappable. And Rachel Alexandra, you do bring up some good points with Shook Up, who broke her maiden by over 13 lengths back in early January at Fairgrounds at her second career start. Was 5th last time in the Rachel Alexandra, but bridged the gap on I'm a Chatterbox, and you are dealing with the Tap at Awesome Again homebred for Regis Racing, who does look like a good filly. But barring what Condo Commando does this coming Saturday in the Gazelle, I think there's a good chance I'm a Chatterbox off her resume may just be the Kentucky Oaks favorite.
Yeah, and we know that Larry Jones can win a Kentucky Oaks as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe we have a Asmussen and Jones showdown in the Oaks.
Wouldn't be the first time. On to our next race at Fairgrounds. It's the New Orleans Handicap, and this was the race at a mile and a furlong, a grade 2. In fact, that didn't draw a race chock full of some of the best handicap horses in training, but most attention, and rightfully so, with his resume as a 4-year-old last season, went to Moreno, who's in the blue cap. Found himself a little further off the pace than he's used to being, and here he comes 3 wide attacking the pace.
Yeah, right. This was a little bit further back than he wanted to be, I'm sure, and kind of maybe had to make a premature move into, once again, a fairly quick pace. They obviously had the track nice and tight down there at Fairgrounds, but on the outside, it was number 9, Call Me George, in here, the 5-year-old, and, you know, he hasn't won that many times, only 5 for 22 lifetime, but he managed to get the job done.
Well, for Grant Forster, I guess there's something to be said for a horse who has been training and running regularly at Fairgrounds. That's been the case with this 5-year-old son of Point Given, who was exiting an allowance race. In fact, was 3rd behind Red Rifle in last November's Hawthorne Gold Cup, a race that produced F&X, a good-looking New York Bred allowance winner here on the Intertrack Friday for trainer Jimmy Jerkins. Moreno, very game horse, never goes down without a fight. To me, though, he just needs everything his own way to win races like this. And he's not even running against the best handicap horses in the country.
Yeah, this was a very weak field, in my opinion. I mean, we do see this New Orleans handicap come up fairly strong sometimes. Right. And this year it just didn't. He was kind of definitely the headliner. And he's a cool horse because he puts in the miles. He travels all around for trainer Eric Guillot. But today wasn't his day. Right,
I think Palace Mouse and Normandy Invasion were 1-2 in this race last year.
Yeah.
So Palace Mouse would go on to defeat Moreno in the Metropolitan. Let's move on to race the 5th race at Gulfstream Park. I felt like I was doing Talking Horses for a sec. It's the Grade 3 Skip-Away. This is not Talking Horses. It's the National Racing Report, and we've got the Skip-Away named for a Hall of Famer, a Gray, and just one of the best horses that I've ever seen with my own set of eyes. He was just such a good runner and just an iron horse, a great freight train. Regardless, a mile and 3/16 was the distance, and lo and behold, another stakes win on the Florida Derby undercard for trainer Todd Pletcher. Commissioner, white cap, Windstar Silks, sitting second outside, and he's a grinder, but he's very game, and he'll just find the wire first.
I was going to say, Jay, you definitely have a thing for gray horses. Skip Away, Holy Bull, the list goes on. But Commissioner, he was a game second place in going a mile and a half in our Belmont Stakes here last summer. And, I mean, it looks as though he's on the right track. It's cool to see these horses come back as 4-year-olds after having decent 3-year-old campaigns, and he was game here. He put away Valid, who was a big that's not Valid, I'm sorry. It's Senora
Quisaqueño.
There you go.
Yeah.
A really good pickup claim by Peter Walder at 62.5. He's now graded stakes place, so that's pretty cool.
And won the Sunshine Millions Classic back in January. But Commissioner,
resolute.
Yeah, very game.
Defeat.
And they pulled away from everybody else. Now, Commissioner, as Todd Pletcher has potentially, and we hope, we'll see it when we believe it. Palace Mouse is with Todd String down at Palm Beach Downs. runs. I would imagine, and Todd said, he's on the record saying that horse may resurface early on during the Belmont Park Spring-Summer meet, but you've potentially got Powis Malice. Race Day was a good second last week or 2 weeks ago out at Oaklawn Park, and Constitution,
Race Day
who won the Don, or we won that race at Oaklawn Park. Thank you.
Oh.
Shipped out of Gulfstream, won successfully. So Todd's got some good handicap horses, and with that in mind, I think they will point or at least look at Commissioner going in some longer races like the Brooklyn down the road.
I would say definitely. Commissioner likes these longer distances. He's, as you said, he's an out-and-out grinder. He does have that kind of higher cruising speed, but he's able to carry it a lot further than a lot of other horses are concerned. And you know, Todd's always loaded with the 3-year-olds, but this year he's really loaded with the 4-year-olds. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of separates them leading up to these bigger handicap races.
From Skipaway to Sir Shackleton, as we bring this epic edition of the National Racing Report to a close. Good group of older horses, some familiar names in this one, perhaps none more impressive in this 7-furlong $100,000 stake than Pants on Fire, who is 7. He's banked over $1.5 million, and this was his 5th consecutive season of winning at least one stake race. It's pretty impressive. Great horse, and Kelly Breen's done just an outstanding job at keeping him together against very good competition.
This is the race with Valid setting the early pace, and there's similar green colors for Cross Sabres Farm. But Pants on Fire, Kelly Breen is good bringing horses back off layoffs. He is coming off of about a 3-month layoff here, and Confrontation gets very close to him. But, you know, I think he was a horse that Kelly Breen, Pants on Fire, thought, well, he likes to go these kind of route distances. He's 2 for 2 going 7/8. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe he comes back up here.
You got the Westchester. Yeah.
Going a 1-turn mile. I think he'd be really, really strong in that spot.
And Kelly Breen, as a long-range goal, did mention that the Breeders' Cup Mile, if they can get back there with Pants on Fire, would be the spot they'd want to close out this horse's career. But I'll tell you, we began the show in the Dubai World Cup with an 8-year-old gelding running in his 4th Dubai World Cup, and to end it and the races of the week with Pants on Fire, who, just think about this, ran in the Kentucky Derby that Animal Kingdom won back in 2011. He's still sticking around going strong. Wood Day, it's on the horizon. We're less than a week out. It's been a long winter. It's still snowing outside as we tape the show, a week in the spring. But April 4th, the Big A is the place to be.
It can't get here soon enough for me, Jay. I love Memorial Day. It's finally, you know, the paddock, I can't blame people. I'm down there, not a lot of people. But at Wood Day, I can barely move, and that's for almost every single race. So it's just the energy. You get back into the flow of good races.
It's the prime time, 5 graded stakes, or 5 stakes, 4 of them graded, and a free baseball cap. The TwinSpires.com Wood Memorial Baseball Cap free with the purchase of a post-parade program and/or a voucher. We give you a pat, and we blow you a kiss, and we say thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Racing Report. We'll see you back for Wood Week. Maggie and myself and everybody else this coming Wednesday at 1:20.